So can you catch them off guard? Will they say something that's off script, or what they have practiced that will sort of show you who that person really is? And I think that's where the debates really play a crucial role. Can we get to see another side of this, the presidential candidates that we haven't seen before? How do they measure up to that, that situation and so forth?
So what do the people expect? Is it a discussion on policy? Is it an explanation of the policy? Or is it just a good orator, or someone who looks confident, or on stage who can overpower his opponent, who would for some be a better president? Or is it that they just look for a likable person? Is it also contributory to this election process?
I think it's all of those things that you mentioned. We've talked a lot about likability factor that you just mentioned, particularly when it comes to Mitt Romney. Is he a likable person from the general public? That factor has been brought about. So in the debates, but I think here a lot of people are looking for details on policy, because from both sides we've heard that we don't have too much information on the specifics. You've heard this word specifics come up, where a lot of interviewers have tried to get at the specifics from both of the
and they
sides.
keep running away.
Right, and so these moderators that are doing the elections are very well experienced veteran journalists who've been doing this for a long time, and they know how to try to get to those specifics. So if we don't hear, that might also affect so who wins, so to say. Well, we try to pick a winner of the debate, so who wins and who sort of doesn't do so well.
Right. Now, one point that we were talking about is the surveys. There are surveys which predict who is ahead now. Currently, I think President Obama is at 49% and a 5-point lead over Mitt Romney. Now, one of the key things for Mitt Romney is to try and cover that gap within this 1 month. Now, one of the crucial issues, of course, is in the debate as well, policies. Now, policies play a large part in any election, at least they should. And in the US election, now we have had, for example, the budget deficit. The budget deficit, I understood that the current fiscal year is going to have a 900 billion deficit, and both candidates are coming up with various policies. Any opinion on what they want to do, their tax, their general economic plans?
Well, I think the economy in general, the deficit, the tax reforms that each candidate is planning is the crucial factor for them. When you talk about policies, are you talking about domestic policies, are you talking about foreign policy, So I think the economic policies are going to be, and it already is, it's not, you need to be expert to sort of see that the economic policies are what's crucial on people's mind, because people are struggling still, and the states are trying to recover and so forth. So the tax plans of the two candidates will be questioned more and more, specifically in the debates, and we want to see more of what they've given overall proposals, particularly Paul Ryan's tax plan, which is quite famous now, and but we don't hear the specifics. That's what everyone is saying. Like, we want to know in detail what you plan on doing.
Of course, there is one side on the Republicans that it's a bit of a capitalistic plan, where it supports the wealthy, and it taxes the middleman more. And I think there was a recent revelation that Mitt Romney's tax reductions is very less, and he doesn't pay taxes as the average American citizen. Of course, whether President Obama's plan is greater or better. For example, one of the issues President Obama had was that he was trying to defend that he was not responsible for the current budget deficit, that it was predecessor George Bush that was. But of course, it was shown by facts that during his tenure that there has been an increase in the deficit, much greater than Obama takes credit, if you can call it so. So that's also very interesting. And then there was the issue of the immigrants, that Obama's laws are not so helpful, and they haven't done anything, whereas Mitt Romney might not come. What do you think about the immigrant policies as well?
For the immigration issue, we've seen some recent reports that there's this term flip-flopping came up a couple of elections ago, and where Mitt Romney during the primary season spoke very sort of boldly about having illegal immigrants, people who are in the country illegally for quite a long number of years, be sort of this plan to have them voluntarily go out of the country and so forth, which a lot of people felt was not very practical, given the large number of millions of illegal immigrants that are there. And recently Obama passed this new
the Dream Act,
policy, giving young people a 2 years visa to work,
yes.
who were formerly illegal immigrants, but then they now can get a work permit.
Citizens.
So then recently we've heard Mitt Romney sort of speaking a little bit positively about that. So it's
Changing
this idea of who, I think it was a comedy show, or somebody, one of the reporters said, who is the real Mitt Romney? Please stand up, according to that song. And so we're trying to figure out who is he, what is really his belief, because he's been saying various things on various issues.
I guess when it comes to election, they have their personality, then they have their presidential personality as well. But coming back to policy, Anuradha, how much does policy play, the role policy plays in the US election? Are they actually swayed mainly by policy? Is it important for them?
Yeah, I think it is, definitely. Because if you think about it, we talked about tax reform again. These are issues that people on a day-to-day basis have to go through. My mom and sister in the States, they have to pay taxes, and we're talking about, how do we, it's a real life situation, like how much I pay, how much it affects my overall income. It's a very big question. So whatever policy changes are made at the top will definitely affect, mostly the middle class people.
Right.
So it's definitely on people's minds.
What I come to here is, for example, if you take the Sri Lankan context, policies, yes, they are there, policy statements are there, but people are not so moved by the policy statements because they don't know really too much about it. They, for example, bleed blue or bleed green. Now, are there those that bleed Democrat and bleed Republican in America as well, who, whatever said and done, they will not swing? Is that also there?
Yeah, most definitely. You talk about the swing states, right? And that's basically what that is. You have a number of states which will, pretty much for any election will be either Republican or be either Democrat. For example, like Texas usually goes Republican, Massachusetts, New York usually goes Democratic,
right.
Those types of things. But then you have the important swing states, and that's why everybody's talking about these states. Ohio is one example. They say that in recent history, no president has won the election without winning the state of Ohio,
Right.
So in those crucial states, these candidates are doing a lot more campaign activities and so forth, because there is that uncertainty where you don't know which way it will go.
Right.
But there are those very firm bases for both parties, that are typically always either red or blue.
Of course, an interesting point that came up was there are about 30% in many of these states who are independent. So, of course, there will be swing states in general, and as well as 30% in general in these states as well. Now, one factor that will really influence an election, of course, is the media. Coming from your expertise in journalism, what role does media play in the US election and in general as well? I think media plays a heightened role in the US election.
Well, I think you're right. Not media as we see it, not just the news media, if you say, but if you take into consideration the advertising that presidential elections spend millions and millions of dollars on, putting advertising on in various cities, pretty much every state. So that has a huge impact, when you see it over and over and over again for these people, and they're very good at doing their political advertising, so that has a huge impact, and that's obviously why people spend so much money on it.
Right.
But the news media, obviously, there's a huge impact, as you said. You have these big networks that are often leaning one way or the other. We obviously know, sort of, for example, Fox leans Republican. Other MSNBC, even
and all that,
right, and even perhaps even CNN, people say lean Democratic. And these are powerful, media networks. So whatever they say, if you watch, for example, Fox and MSNBC, I'll use as examples. They're very overt. They don't try to hide the fact, that they're neutral or anything like that. They don't hide it. You can very clearly see which side they support, and they try to enhance that. So when you take a position like that, instead of pretending to be neutral, or not even pretending, but trying to be neutral, you take a side and that's very powerful, I think.
Very powerful indeed. And of course, something I've found is those the campaigns, the videos they have against each other, how people like Jay Leno take it up and make it real fast. We'll come back on Good Morning Sri Lanka and continue the discussion just after this break.